Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It's 6:04 right now. We are going to begin our work session, the annual beach work session, with the Parks and Recreation Department and the Recreation and Advisory Board regarding a review of the 2022 beach season and beach policies and fees for the 2023 season. We'll have Ms. Kershaw, Director of the Department of Parks and Department of Recreation Board, Parks and Rec Department, come up to give her presentation, and then we'll take comments, any preliminary comments from the council members, and we'll open it up to the public, and then we'll circle back to the council, and then we'll close the session. So, Ms. Kershaw, if you'd like to.
Council President, thank you very much for your introductory remarks. Council Pro Tem, pleasure. Council members, thank you very much for having the beach work session so soon after being sworn in. I do appreciate that. It does help my staff at the Parks and Recreation Department move forward quickly into the next season of the beach. Because as you know, in January, Bridget McPhillips, who is in the room, our clerk for the beach right over here, she'll be sending out all of the facility package renewals. So again, guaranteed revenue for the town. So to begin, I have a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go through it pretty quickly. It speaks for itself on what happens at Narragansett Town Beach and the job that is done by the men and women from the Parks and Recreation Department, the beach staff, parks maintenance, etc. So again, I want to thank all of the members of my staff at Parks and Recreation and at Parks Maintenance. I'd also like to thank the Recreation Advisory Board, who are always very instrumental in providing information on possible decision-making ideas that are presented to the council. So again, that cooperation that we have with the Rec Advisory Board is something that we truly appreciate in the Parks and Recreation Department. The mission of Narragansett Town Beach is to create a superior experience for beachgoers, all beachgoers, now and in the future, with a safe and efficient beach operation that ensures long-term sustainability of the beach and affordability for all. The mission of the Narragansett Town Beach is necessary to maintain and protect the quality of the beach for sustaining the important ecological service it provides to the town. And I make a note on this particular slide regarding future plans for a beach capacity study. We also recognize that the beach is a town asset, and as such, all policies, fees, parkings, lockers, cabanas, etc., should first serve town residents and taxpayers. The beach operates as a self-sustaining financial enterprise that creates no additional tax burden on town residents. We do our very best to ensure that fee structures not only address annual expenses, but also provide sufficient income to address long-term capital improvements arising from building renovations, parking lot repairs, parking lot replacements in the event of hurricanes, sand replenishment, which, as you know, we did not replenish sand this year, but I'm sure in the future there'll be discussion regarding that, storm damage, and erosion. We also recognize, again, the very delicate balance we have with our non-resident beachgoers, and we do our very best to try to find ample parking for our non-residents by using the west lot for parking. The beach management priorities, number one is customer safety, customer satisfaction, our residents, of course, and taxpayers, clean and well-maintained facilities, consistent with our policies with accountability, efficient beach operations, our daily operations from the time we open to the time we close. Again, future beach sustainability plans, which are always on the horizon, and of course our beach capital improvement plans and development plans. Every morning, as you know, beginning at 4 a.m., sometimes at 4:30, depending on the tide, The beach is raked for approximately 3 to 4 hours, again, depending on the conditions, to make the beach a pristine and a supreme, sand experience. The beach rake also pulls up debris, plastic, fishing line, and whatever other debris may be on the beach, bottles, unfortunately, sometimes glass, again, to make the sand a very nice experience for our beachgoers. Rubbish, we have an annual rubbish contract that we have that goes out to bid. That bid is currently pending and will go out soon. So again, we as a town pay for that additional fee to have that trash removed early morning from all of the, I believe, 52 beach corrals that are throughout the town beach property. Any seaweed and debris is removed from the property and loaded in the back of our dump truck. That truck is dumped every day that the beach is raked, except, of course, on Saturdays. We have to wait till Monday for dumping that truck. And again, that's an added expense as well that we incur, again, to keep the beach nice and pristine. During the week, lifeguards are on duty from 8:30 to 6. During the weekends, 7:30 to 6. Beach staff is on, our normal beach staff who assist with collecting fees, parking and admission fees are on till 5 o'clock. Though in past years, we did limit access to the parking lots from 5 to 8, that has changed. Last year, I changed that policy, and I will not be requesting that to be implemented. I like the idea of having the parking lots open at 5 o'clock. West Lot, of course, is our non-resident parking lot, and that is open for non-residents Monday through Friday for $10, and on the weekends and holidays for $15. We charge from 8:30 to 5 daily during the week and 7:30 to 5 on the weekends. The admission fee this year was $12, as it was in the past year. And parking fee also remained the same. Restrooms are open till 7 o'clock and are cleaned on a regular basis. And again, as I said earlier, we stop charging at 5 o'clock every day. A very important program that we've been very happy to be involved in is our sunscreen, our free sunscreens program, in coordination with the Recreation Advisory Board, the Narragansett Parks and Recreation Department, Raw Elements, and also several sponsors throughout town, Lizzie and Keith Kyle, South County Dermatology, and O'Neill's Package Store, help us provide this free sunscreen at several different locations throughout the beach. We pay for that sunscreen through Raw Elements, and the sunscreen dispensers are donated by Raw Elements. It's a great program. Again, it is free for anyone to utilize. And again, the dispensers are located throughout the beach. And we recently had a dispenser over the summer installed at one of our parks in town as well. Getting to the meat and potatoes of the comparisons between the 2021 beach season and 2022 daily operation. So this year, as everybody knows, we had a wonderful, wonderful seasonal beach season. Only 6 days of the 98 beach days, the beach was closed due to rain. And when I say closed, I mean that we were not charging on that particular day. However, we had paid staff in place. We had several managers on duty, just kind of holding the fort, and also our lifeguards remained on duty all of those days until 6 o'clock for the safety of the water and the public who still go into the water on those particular rainy days. The West Lot filled 31 times, the North Lot 11 times, and the South Lot 3 times. During those times of closures, the average time these lots remained closed was approximately 1 to 1.5 hours. Again, Bill Eckert, who's sitting to my left at that table, he would immediately go out, monitor the lots, have staff go up and down the lanes, notifying him of any available spots and doing our very best to alleviate traffic on the roadway and get people into the lots to be able to park. Revenue comparisons. Our miscellaneous receipts and clothing revenue is up by $11,000. And that has to do with an increase in sales of lanyards, hats, towels. Additionally, we had 3 new sponsors for our beach concerts and movie concerts this year. The adult seasonal passes are down by, the revenue is down by $7,050. The youth passes are down by $965. Vehicle replacement pass, the revenue is down by $25. However, the seasonal parking passes, and these are the seasonal parking passes that resident taxpayer purchases, are up by 244 passes, which equates to $11,770. What we are finding is that a lot of our resident taxpayers have children that are of the driving age, and they are purchasing 2 to 3 parking passes, sometimes even 4, for the household. Daily parking sales, this is our daily revenue, our $10 parking sales and our $15 parking sales on the weekends is up by $35,000.21. However, our daily admission sales, though we had an excellent summer, our revenue is down by $52,962.60. But again, as the pendulum swings, our transferable commercial passes, so these are our $200 commercial transferable passes. These are passes that are purchased by our taxpayers that rent their homes during the summer, are up by 60 passes for an increased revenue of $11,600. However, our resident transferable passes, which are $100 apiece, are down by 63, with a loss of revenue of $7,215. On page 11, our revenue comparison continues, looking at our beach concert revenue, our cabana revenue, our North Pavilion changing room revenue, and our South Pavilion locker revenue. The underlined numbers, So our underlined numbers that you can see are pretty comparable. So in 2021, our total of all funds that I was just discussing was $2,410,291. This year, it's $2,422,061.82. So at this point, in this particular area of revenue comparisons, we're a little bit higher, which is a good thing. The next slide is a very important slide. These are the audited enterprise fund numbers over the past 5 years. These numbers include the inflows and outflows included in the fund balance. So these are actual audited numbers. So I call your attention to the numbers of 2020 and 2021. And as you see, we have over $500,000 loss in revenue between those two fund balance year balances. In 2020, the unrestricted fund balance was $4.6 million. In 2021, it was $4,052,000. That brings me to a very important slide regarding the operating revenue versus the operating expense. As you can see, in 2018, the operating income revenue was $468,000. In 2019, it was $525,000. In 2020, it was $645,000. However, in 2021, the audited operating income was only $156,914. The next slide, we discuss capital improvement projects. And as you know, our storm reserve total right now is $875,000. Each budgeted year, we put in $125,000 specifically for the storm reserve total fund, or storm reserve fund, and right now this is the balance. This year, the shoreline mapping and URI analysis continued. This is the fourth year of a 5-year study. The cost of that program was $22,347. A recent HVAC unit went at the North Beach Clubhouse. That cost was $7,249. As you know, the deck roof for the Canachet Club, North Beach Clubhouse, is still pending. Architect Frank Karpowitz should be returning results shortly on a design-build plan. Council approved the refurbishing previously of the Barber Beach Rake. That beach rake is currently out for service at a cost of just under $20,000. And again, I reference as a new and future capital improvement, a beach capacity study. And at this point, the cost is unknown. Future capital improvements, again, the deck at the North Beach Canachet Club, renovations to the South Pavilion lockers and sales office. My hope is to have the sales office be in a separate location along with a possible police substation for security purposes and move all the money away from the general operation of what happens at the beach. Right now, kind of everybody's running around at the South Pavilion. We've got the sales office there. We've got lifeguards running around. We've got beach staff coming in and out. So I think it's important that down the road we try to find a better way to keep the sales office a little more away from the general duties or general operation of the beach. So again, I had mentioned the police substation down the road. Also, the cabana lot is going to need to be paved very shortly. That's an unknown cost that we'll need to start thinking about. And also possibly a kiosk at the North Pavilion. As you know, most of the staff kind of just sit on that wall there and collect the money as people come through. I'm hoping to get an actual booth there, again, making it a little more professional looking to help people know exactly where they need to go to pay to get onto the beach. And also there was a recommendation about possible beach security stations throughout the area of the beach. So again, kind of along the lines of the parking lot booths that we have, maybe having different areas throughout the beach, that if somebody had a problem, a lost child, a lost cell phone, etc., they could go to somebody quickly and say, hey, I need help. This is what my problem is, and kind of have that addressed on a faster basis, as opposed to having them maybe run to the lifeguards if the lifeguards are busy, or run to the pavilions trying to find somebody. So I thought that was a good idea that we're definitely going to look into. Of course, our Narragansett Surf Rescue team, as you know, won again. And we're always so very proud of the guys and girls that make up that team. They train hard. They're diligent in everything that they do in their everyday life, and we're very proud of the work that they do every day. Mike Florio, the head lifeguard, sets an outstanding example. He always hires the best of the best and trains them to be the best, and we are very proud that they are part of our Parks and Recreation Narragansett Town Beach operation. And my last slide, next to last slide, discusses the problems that we encountered this season in 2022, and also a discussion, hopefully, with the council regarding the credit card fees that we currently incur with the town. So as you know, the water turnoff, the water ban was a significant issue for us this year and caused some very big plumbing concerns for the town beach. Bill Ecker can attest Atlantic Plumbing was at the beach daily, pulling toilets off the wall, sucking out sand, pulling urinals off the wall. And I did post a picture once on Facebook. I'm sure everybody saw that. So we're hoping for a better year this year, and/or we'll certainly make some recommendations to our beachgoers to bring water with them. You know, wash yourself off at your car like your mom and dad used to do back in the day, and bring extra towels and try not to wash yourself in the toilets and sink. The police detail cost was quite significant this year. The total cost for our police details was $12,375. And again, this was the detail that again started at our shoulder season and ended also at our shoulder season in September. The credit card processing fees, I'm not sure you're aware, but we currently, as a town, we incur those fees. And I'm hoping to move forward to a program. I'm going to work with Matt LaValle and Christine Wilson to see how we can not have to incur those fees, because the credit card fees this year alone were just under $26,000. And a very interesting situation happened this summer, our fraudulent parking pass investigation. So it just happened. I'm sure it's happened before, but it just happens this year. My staff was pretty well on it and being able to identify fraudulent passes. There were some very good fraudulent beach passes this year. But as you know, whenever anybody purchases a seasonal beach pass, we not only record that in our recreation database, we also do the old-fashioned writing it down on a piece of paper, on a spreadsheet, who bought it, their license plate number, where they live, the registration, etc. So that investigation resulted in 5 non-residents being charged with a fraudulent beach pass. All were summoned to traffic court and all pled and paid a $500 fine. I did attend 2 of the hearings in hopes of trying to get some information regarding how this happened, but nobody wished to cooperate with me at that point. So, and finally, just a statement that I know everybody is aware of, but I just want to remind everybody here today, not only the council, I know the council's aware of it, but also the people in the audience and those that might be watching from home, that the annual review and adjustment of user fees, which we're going to talk about next, ensures revenue is sufficient to support operational expenses, capital project needs, and adequate contingency reserve. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and myself recommend the following increases for 2023. Now, when I say recommend, again, I know this council is new, and I know that some of you are just getting your feet wet. We offer these recommendations as a starting point. In the previous slide, one of the previous slides that indicates, again, the beach only made $156,000 last year. And again, that's making money, and I understand that, but I think that adjustments in fees is necessary to be able to sustain the enterprise fund. If we don't, the enterprise fund is going to continue to be depleted. And I just don't think that's how and why the enterprise fund was designed. The beach should be self-sustaining and self-supporting. People want to come to the beach, and I'm certainly not looking for any drastic changes in fee structure, but I think with the operating costs that are coming our way, building maintenance and repairs, I think raising fees is a necessity.
Michelle, can I just clarify this last slide that you said? I just wanted to ask you, it says Park and Rec. They recommended these? Are they supporting it or not? Because I'm on that as a liaison. And just this last slide, I was talking to some of the members, and I think it's just some prices, but they didn't say, here, we recommend this to the council, correct?
Right, so these are areas.
Just wanted to be clear on that.
Sure. So these were areas that we thought we should look at for increases as a starting point. You know, where should we start? We've got to start somewhere. So these were the particular fees that we wanted to look at. For example, the commercial transferable passes. We can tell by the numbers, the taxpayers, they want to buy these passes. They build them into their packages, into their rental packages. If they buy 4, which they're only allowed to buy 5, those passes can be used by any renter, any person that rents that house throughout the entire summer. So if they have 1-week rentals, 2-week rentals, 1-month rentals, those passes can be used by 300 people throughout the summer. So we talked a lot about that, the commercial transferable pass increase as a possible starting point. Also the resident, again, looking at the resident parking pass. The resident parking pass is $50. It's been $50 for 11 years. So I didn't think it was egregious to ask possibly for an increase in that. As you know, last year, I requested the daily parking fee to increase to $20. I was hoping, again, that the council might take into consideration $20 parking fee across the board. And as you know, you received in your package a comparison sheet of parking throughout several of our state beaches. And again, I don't need to go over that. You have it in front of you. But certainly, based on my review of this, a $20 parking fee is more than comparable to what the other towns throughout the state of Rhode Island are doing, as well as Truro Beach, Second and Third Beach, Middletown, Easton Beach, Yarmouth, Misquamicut. So again, you could continue to review these. But again, $20 is just right what everybody else is doing. And there's even much higher prices when you look at this document. Also, the admission fee, again, I am requesting you consider the $15. And then, as I said earlier, continued discussion with the town controller and director of finance regarding this 3% credit card fee that we're currently incurring. I really think we need to try to find a way how to recoup those funds.
So, Michelle, that list in front of us, I just want to be clear again, is a recommendation from you as the director, but not so much the board, because it does say the board. I just want to be clear on that because, you know, that protocol, go to the board, make sure there's a recommendation. So those on the list are from you as the director.
They are based on a discussion with the board. The board did not directly say, yes, let's propose these.
Yeah, that's important.
Yep.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my PowerPoint presentation.
Well done.
If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, so at this point, we can go around the council. Councilor Cecilia Bonanno, do you have any questions?
So I just want to understand the fund a little bit. You know, the money that we use and make on the beach, it goes back into the beach. There's a good surplus, right? It's not used for the taxes for the town. So,
Well, no, I'll have to stop you there because you know the pilot program. So
Yeah.
payment in lieu of taxes. So every year, the money that the beach makes, so just under $500,000 goes back to the town for paying the pilot
Oh, that's right.
program. Correct.
but it's pretty healthy, so.
$4 million.
Right,
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, so I just wanted to make sure I understood it because it's a recreational activity. It's not really a place where we want to make money for the town through the town beach, correct? I mean, I'm just trying to philosophically, we always have this debate, you know, the money from the beach goes back into the, you know, and money we make goes back into it. We want to be healthy, but it's not a money-making business, right? I mean, our hope is that families and residents can come and enjoy, break even, maybe make a little, but that's not the primary setup of that fund, correct?
Well, the setup of the fund is to run the beach, and it is supposed to make money. It no doubt is. If something were to happen, like a few years ago with Sandy, we didn't have enough money in the enterprise fund, and we had to borrow money from the town. Now, we paid that money back, but we did deplete the enterprise fund with the repairs that were needed for Sandy. So I think what I wish I had the answer was that, okay, $10 million is where we need it to be. That's a safe place. Unfortunately, I don't have that answer, and I don't know if we could get that answer as to how much the enterprise fund should be to be comfortable. And I wish I had that number, but I don't.
Okay, that's all I have for right
Okay.
now, but I'm not sure we agree. I mean, I'm just concerned about it because, everybody wants to make money on the beach, and I think it's a great concept, but I don't think that was the original intent of the actual fund. It was just to make sure it could run the beach
Right.
without a huge profit, that's all.
No, and that's why a few years ago, when the profit was 600,000, 500,000, 460, now it's 156. That, again, is concerning to me. That's why I bring it to your attention, because, again, running the beach is only going to cost more money.
I just want people to be able
Certainly.
to afford it.
Yep, oh, no, absolutely,
Yeah.
and I completely agree with you. I do, and that's why we have to find a balance.
Right, thanks.
Counselor Ferrandi, any questions? Or?
Yes, I have a few questions. The recent, lack of a better words, but not as much of a surplus is there any kind of reason for that at all? I mean, does the rec board know at all why, or have any, are we down on certain passes and up on certain passes, or how come it was such a significant decrease with the summer we had? Was it all expenses maybe, or?
Well, it's a lot to do with the expenses. Salaries, as you know, minimum wage increased. So it's a combination of expenses, operating supplies, building maintenance and repairs, equipment maintenance and repairs. So it's a totality of everything that goes into making that beach run. And again, I'm not saying that, oh, it's because we just don't increase the fees. I understand we need to have a balance, but what I also understand is that running the beach is not going to ever cost us less. It's going to cost us more. So there's many different factors. For example, Atlantic Plumbing. Right now, my plumbing budget is about 160% over budget. So there's things that pop up that we just can't control, but we have to get them done. We've got to fix them. We can't put a Band-Aid on things, especially when it comes to plumbing. So things cost a lot of money. So.
I realize that, and I think it's good to have some sort of a healthy budget, just in case things come up. I mean, if we could, everything could stay the same, and we could run that down to practice, well, wherever we run it down, and then it becomes a taxation issue with the town. So, a good balance is really the best bet, and then just to kind of, monitor any conditions where we see some, like you've been doing, adjustments that need to be made.
And that's my recommendation to the council. We can start off, or you can decide and recommend to start off maybe it's starting off with parking this year. Maybe next year it's going to start with increasing facility lease fees, because they have not been increased in a while. So again, I think a gradual, policy change over the years might be something to consider. But again, I just want you to know as a council where the enterprise fund stands based on the audited numbers. So we're not surprised down the road that if we aren't making adjustments, all of a sudden in 2025, we look and the enterprise fund is maybe at $1 million or less.
A couple other questions. I heard a few people, this is probably something not new, but they mentioned about rocks being in the water a little more this year than other years. And I know at some of the state beaches, they have a machine that kind of picks up rocks. I'm not sure how it's done in the water. So, and I know the beach changes probably with the tides and all that. So was there any really significant rocks per se on the beach anybody could notice?
There were several concerns about the rocks at the southern end of the beach. I can't say why people were complaining about the rocks actually physically in the water, if they were swimming and there were rocks tumbling in the water. Most of the complaints I received were physically rocks at the southern end of the beach. Of course, my explanation was change in tides. We did not put sand on the beach this year. So those were my explanations to the people that complained about that. However, as you know, if you look at the south end of Narragansett Town Beach today, the sand is back. So it's a cyclical issue that happens. Again, am I going to blame it all on not having sand put on the beach? Nope, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Because again, one storm, two storms that occur is going to take that sand right out of there, and then we're going to have to wait for it to come back.
And one other one I had was the the patrons, you know, on the south end there, and the wall kind of jumping over. And maybe with the kiosk that you had explained, you know, maybe you'll have more of a presence here, so, you know, whether or not they're going to be able to monitor it that much, you probably need a whole nother setup for that. So that's the only other issue I had about, that I heard about, was people kind of jumping over the wall. It's probably been an ongoing thing for a long time.
It has, sir, and it's, I tell my staff, and Bill will tell his staff, we'll do our very best to try to get people's attention when they jump the wall. If we have enough staff to go down and speak to the patron, ask them to pay. Sometimes they jump in the water. I tell staff, don't go swimming after people. Also, don't jump from the wall and break an ankle. Again, we try our very best to get people to comply. Oftentimes it doesn't happen, but I do know that this year, Bill Eckert had a lot of our security staff with white shirts on, hanging around in that area during those key times when we would see a lot of jumpers.
Yeah, it's probably the best you can do. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. Nice job.
Counselor Kopek.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very thorough, and I appreciate that. I do have a few questions.
Of course.
Of course, right. The first thing I want to just mention is one of the things we do have is a copy of the budget pages. And when I was going through them, I just wanted to understand, you know, it looks to me like about a third or maybe a little bit more than a third of the budget has not yet been spent for this year. And I know that some of your expenses come right into the spring. Right?
Correct. So so these budgetary numbers have to get us to June 30th. Mhm.
Right. But the other thing is that I imagine that in some cases, budgets are, you know, odd little things, and sometimes you plan for something, it doesn't happen. You don't plan for something, it does happen. You like to hope that that's going to balance out, but it doesn't always. So if there's a fund, a budget overage, in other words, you have money available, that money goes back into the enterprise fund, right?
Correct.
That's where it goes? Okay. I just wanted to be sure that that was clear. So it'd be interesting to see, I mean, I'd sort of like to see, for example, what happened in 2021. We don't know yet this year. I was also curious if we know, I know everything's unaudited for 2022, but if we know roughly what we think the beach fund is going to be, you know, as opposed to what it was in 2021.
Well, the only thing I could tell you right now is based on that budget report you were referring to, which is dated 11/21 of 22. Christina and I pulled this last week. On the last page, it says change in fund balance, net of revenue/expenses. We're at $221,392. So positive. So that money right now, if the beach season was over, if the audit was done, that 221 would go to the 4 million.
Right. So it'd be like 4.4 million instead of 4.2, right?
Correct.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm kind of going to go backwards here. With regard to the information about increases, one of the things I just want to point out is that, you know, our residential parking pass, you know, the increase. The one thing, I mean, I went back and I looked at all the other towns that were listed on the list that we had, and not any of them have a walk-on fee. So I think it's important to understand that, and I kind of did a little math about that. And, no matter what, if we stay the same, we're still charging more than those other beaches. I just want to make that point.
Certainly, yeah.
So we need to take that into consideration as we determine which of these things, we're interested in. I actually am interested in the commercial transferable pass. I think increasing that is an interesting idea. And I also think that the increase in revenue from that is a significant issue for a lot of reasons, and not just because there's a lot of money there. But we can talk about that, I think, a little bit later. The other thing that kind of jumped out at me, and I think last time we got a sheet that showed us like the daily number of people who were on the beach, which is really useful. I thought it was really, really interesting. And typically, on the really, really hot days, that was when the most people were there. Sometimes it was during the week, usually it was on the weekend. So I started to think about the implications there of what we do with the beach during the week and during the weekend, in terms of parking and everything else. And maybe there's a different way to look at how we handle parking. I mean, I've passed the beach many, many times when there's not a lot of people there and it's the middle of the summer, but it's also Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's something there that maybe we could talk through and work out a little bit differently. But the other thing that I did was I looked at the numbers that you gave for the north lot, south lot, and the west lot, how full they were or were not. And just so to give it a different perspective than the numbers, the percentages are interesting. The north lot was full 11% of the time throughout the summer. Certainly there were days when the lot was full, but 11% is a pretty low number for 99 days. The south lot was full 3% of the time during regular functioning hours, and the west lot was full 31% of the time. So one of the things that implies to me, I don't know if it's right or not, but what it implies to me is that we are getting some significant revenue from people out of town. And I think that's just something to consider as well. I'm not sure what we could do, but it might be worth a little more conversation. And the other thing is that the other sort of related factor there was that the daily parking revenue was up 19%, or $35,000. And if you relate that back to the other statistics, it probably came out of the west lot. So that's just, again, something to consider. I don't know if you still have that list, if you're still completing the daily list.
No, I have that.
Oh, you do?
And I was going to include it, but it's such
like that.
it's such a huge Excel program.
I know.
But I would be happy.
don't
I've
have
made
to-
a
you don't
note.
have to
No,
do
I'd
that.
be
No,
happy
it's
to
all right.
send it to you. It's just so
I know.
big.
You know what?
But I'll certainly send it.
I would
if
just
you'd like.
really like to know the differences between the weekends and the
Sure.
weekdays, because again, I think there's something there that we could use to determine what we need to do if we need to do increases. I'm sorry, I'm going to take a little while
No.
here. The other thing I wanted to say, the other things I wanted to say is, hold on one second. Oh, I already mentioned that. Okay. And I mentioned that. I'm ahead of myself, so I apologize. So the storm reserve is a fund. I just want to verify. That's that $800,000-ish. That's actually just sitting in the beach fund, right? That's just money that's there, but it's designated.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
And
yeah.
so if it's $800,000 a year that's designated for that, what's
125,000.
I'm sorry,
That's right.
125,000, sorry. That would be a lot of money.
I can't have you say
Yeah.
that.
So 800,000 is 125,000 over a certain number of years, and that would continue to increase as long as we had. So that would continue to increase, but sometimes it means that we are sort of pulling it from the general beach fund to make that 125,000 and putting it in a separate location. Is that right?
Correct. So say we're at 4 million.
Yeah.
So say we didn't make a profit. Say, for example, we're not making a profit this year, just as an example.
Yeah.
So again, that fund would reduce by $125,000 next year for the storm reserve fund.
So if we had $4,200,000, then that number would go down to roughly $4 million. Okay, that's interesting to know as well. Let me just make sure, I think I'm almost done here. And the capital improvements are also paid for through the enterprise fund. Right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so I think it would be interesting to make sure that we knew, I mean, it'd be useful to, we see the capital improvements all the time. We see that information when we do capital budgeting. But I think it would be very interesting for this event to just kind of note that, you know, in the previous years, we spent this amount. This is what the impact on the beach fund is, the enterprise fund, and, you know, going forward. I just think that would be an interesting statistic to have
agree.
as well. Because I think sometimes it's the capital projects that are depleting the fund more than any other thing.
yes.
Not that there's anything,
True.
you know, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing them, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. It's just a fact.
Yeah, and I agree with you when you say that, because, of course, when I spoke briefly about the deck roof design,
Right.
so that is not a concern, but I know those numbers are going to come in higher. So
Right.
again, that's going to affect my capital budget.
Right, and I mean,
So-
right, and I know we approved the architect for the roof for the for the beach,
Yep.
the clubhouse. After, you know, you gave us a presentation, and we said, maybe we should try something else. So that's, you know, that's on us. But I think it'll be fabulous when it's done. So that'll be good. And that's also a revenue generator, right? 'Cause-
Correct.
Yeah, so
Correct,
that's
yeah.
kind of that is a positively double-edged sword. Let me see, I said that, okay. The other thing, you answered those questions before I even asked them, so I think I'm good. Thank you so much, I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
President Pro Tem Lawler.
Thank you, Michelle, and I just want to start by thanking you and your department for what you do. Bill Eckert, who is here tonight, thank you. Thank you to Tom Warren, the chair of the committee, to Paul, to Jan, and Gina, who made it here tonight. Thank you for all the work that you do. It's behind the scenes, but it's very much appreciative. Before I go through my comments, we're all commenting, except for Eva yet, on the enterprise fund, but the one comment I want to make about why we need to keep that a very healthy fund is not only for the beach, but God forbid the cabanas are taken down, the amount of money for that or for any of the pavilions. So we need to be able to plan so we have that money so that we can keep the beach sustained. But your first slide caught me because it's really what in getting back into office, I really think about the town beach. It should be focused on the residents first. So I appreciate the fact that you did state that are the needs and the wants and the enjoyment of the residents should be first beyond belief. Although we do have the West Lot, and as the obligation for the West Lot, we do have daily admittance to the beach. Having said that, a couple of things that I'd like for you to take a look at is the number of transferable passes for the residents have gone down, yet the commercial has gone up. I think every term that I've sat before you, I've always questioned why we even have the commercial transferable passes available. And looking at that and doing just some really quick math, there were 285 of them done. And that equates out to what the slide is, $51,200 that it made for the town. If we were to think as an alternative, rather than increasing the dollar amount from 200 to 300, as you're suggesting, I think we should also take a look at eliminating them. What would happen then? Again, quick math, and math was not my major in college. So if we would eliminate them and incorporate your $15 daily amount, for those 285 passes, that would mean a month, $4,275. And if you take in the 92 days that you mentioned that were beach days, and I know that's a high amount. If someone's here for vacation, they're not going to be at the beach every single day. But if they were, and you take that number again, the 285, you multiply it by the $15, which is $4,275 a month, it's going to be up there as far as the $393,000 about. So it's significantly more than the $51,000. And I do believe, as you stated, that the beach is a revenue source we should look at as a business. The town is a business, and we haven't been looking at that. We need to be able to make sure that we can make money to keep the money, because ultimately the thing that we should be striving for, at least I believe, is we should be able to want to keep the residents' fees down and charging for the guests that are welcome to the beach to come. So that's one thing that I'd like to take a look at. And, looking at this from a different perspective, I agree with Deb. One thing that would be really helpful is to have some type of a balance sheet available so that we could just easily look at the previous years and very quickly, the slides you had were wonderful, but if we actually had them in a formula that was a balance sheet, we could quickly go back and forth and take a look at previous years and compare. Someone has suggested to me something about a pro forma. If we could have some type of a chart, and what you'd be able to do then, from what I understand, is on an Excel spreadsheet, just plug in numbers. If we have a number that we are looking at that we need to sustain the beach, how much money we need to run the beach, and then we also have a number of what we want to be able to bank every single year to continue that enterprise fund to be very wealthy for us, there's an easy way for you to calculate that by just sitting down and plugging in numbers. And that way, when we're looking at the suggestions that you're making, we'll have a better understanding of what those suggestions mean for the overall end game for the beach profitability for the year. A couple of things. I was wondering what you thought. So the previous council actually decreased the fees to walk onto the beach. Yet from what it looks like, the daily sales were down. Why do you think that was?
To be honest with you, I don't have an answer to that, only because we had such a busy beach season. We really did. So I'm not exactly sure if it was possibly on those weather-dependent days, maybe people didn't come, but I'm not exactly sure why our daily admission revenue is down, because we certainly were very busy.
Yes. As far as the lots after 5 o'clock, I heard your recommendations and appreciate your perspective. But one thing that I heard often with campaigning is that the town residents would like to be able to have at least a cabana lot and at least one lot freed up just for the residents. When they come home at night, if they're not there before 5, they can get in, they can have a place to park. And maybe we should consider having one of the lots available, the one that you use for the food trucks in North Lot, keep that open so that non-residents can enjoy. But I think that also needs to be monitoring. One thing of concern that you mentioned is the amount of extra overtime we have with cleaning up the beach after the 5 o'clock goes. So we have that trend, people come in the morning, then they leave, and so like maybe 4 or 5 natural cycles a time. But the last one requires overtime going back in, and there was a lot of overtime there. So we might want to take a look at it, and at some point in time, even make a small amount of a parking fee to come in on that lot that's open to the public, even if it's $1 or $2, it's just going to help over the amount of money that the town residents are paying for people who are not town residents to come in and enjoy our beautiful asset, that we open it up for that. I think that's it. Deb asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, so let's leave some questions for Eva.
Thanks. I'll be quick. Thank you for the presentation. I've traveled a lot. The Narragansett Town Beach is my absolute favorite place in the world. I enjoy it all year long. I especially like it when my dogs can go on walks with me off season. So thank you for everything that everyone does to keep the beach beautiful. So I did have actually a couple questions in regards to, it is a big difference, that $500,000 difference from the past year. And I know last time when we were discussing, just the fees and the increases, and it was, I think there was a projection with the cost of labor going up, additional staffing. So where did you see that big difference? Was it a big difference? Is it what you projected for in terms of the hourly rate, and then we did do some increases in pay? Would you say that is the biggest?
So salary is definitely, obviously, on the rise, and our biggest increase, along with our operating supplies. Operating supplies are astronomical: toilet paper, paper towels, toilet seat covers, et cetera. Also, our building maintenance and repairs. Again, our contract with E.W. Audette, our electrician, Atlantic Plumbing. So again, the overall operation it is really just increasing. It just costs a lot of money to run the beach.
I agree with that. Do you also with the supply issues that we had post-COVID? I'm sure that contributed to it. Do you feel that that has been resolving, or do you think that's with the supply issues? I know sometimes, people are.
Supply issues are getting better. There is still a backlog of items, especially with WB. We use that carrier quite a bit, their state MPA. But again, just today, we got an order of things that were back ordered for months and months ago. So I do think the supply issues are resolving themselves. However, the costs keep going up and up.
Okay. And then, again, with the numbers for the recommendations or just, the increases, it would be good to see what that converts to in terms of, like, if we increase the transferable pass from this to that. I mean, I didn't do the math, but I didn't go back. I think Deb did. But for example, like even the resident parking pass, we could do that just to have that in front of us to be able to kind of assess that. In regards to the credit card fees, I think it's a convenience to be able to use credit cards. I don't really often carry cash, and I know a lot of businesses do kind of transfer that cost of the credit card fees to the consumer, which would definitely help with that 26% and whatever the fee is that we're getting, and just passing that on. And a lot of businesses, when you go, they advertise that if you're going to pay with a credit card, you're going to be charged that additional, 3%, 4%, or whatever rate we get. So those were just kind of the questions I had, and just to see the numbers overall. But it is a big difference from the past year. So that's really it. Thank you.
Can I make a comment about the credit card fees? I had a conversation with Christine a few months ago on that issue. I don't remember exactly where, maybe it came up in the Finance Committee. And one of the things that we talked about was actually Christine having a conversation with whoever's our procuring, organization, to possibly reduce those fees. So that's another way to. I mean, I don't have any problem passing that information, passing that cost on, but we may be able to actually reduce it so that we don't have to pass it on as much. Just a thought.
Okay, I'll speak with her about that.
Okay.
Michelle, I just want to make a comment. The pre and post police security has been great over the time. The concept that you were talking about, the stations, I'm kind of concerned about that. I'm not sure I could really support that. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on what your thinking was to have, we had the cycle on the beach, and we certainly had police in the parking lot. I thought that was great considering, that big commotion that we had several years ago, riot, whatever. So I think it was a good move for us, but I'm a little concerned about like police stations on the beach. So can you just?
It certainly wouldn't be a police station, definitely not. And it was a recommendation from one of the board members from the Rec Advisory Board. Oftentimes we see it could be a frantic parent, it could be a young person with a lost cell phone. We know how kids get when they can't find their cell phone. And it was just more of a kiosk, so to speak, like almost like an information booth, so to speak. You could go there, it's visible, it's closer than the pavilion would be, because like from the seawall to the pavilion, it's quite a big distance. So it was kind of along that line. Certainly not any type of law enforcement looking type building, just more for an information help desk, question and answer place, or if you have an issue, you need to call somebody. Again, I'll refer to a young child who's lost their phone. They don't know their parents' phone number. A lot of kids rely on their phones for all of their numbers, and just getting help.
Do you still have that program with the young men that are walking the beach?
That CSO program is run by the police department. Yep.
Yeah, so that you have that as well.
True. Yep. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. So anyone from the public would like to speak? Mr. Lynch?
Hi, Dennis Lynch, Central Street, Narragansett. I, I just want to start this off with saying that, I have tremendous respect for the Rec Advisory Board, for the director and the management of the Rec Advisory Department. I go to a lot of the Rec Advisory Board meetings as an observer, and they do excellent work, thorough, committed to the task at hand. I do have some issues with the proposals tonight, and I think Michelle characterized it correctly, that this is a workshop, and this is sort of the first iteration of what we might move forward with in terms of fees. It's clear that increase in fees are necessary because this organization, like everything else, is suffering from a lot of inflation, supply chain, ongoing expenses, and workforce expense inflation as well. So it's very, very clear that fees have to be increased. And then, of course, the $64 question becomes, okay, which fees and by how much get increased? So I was working just with the proposals that were up there to get some sense of quantifying what they might mean. And if you look at the big three by dollar volume, the seasonal parking increase, the daily parking, and the daily admission. The seasonal parking increase as proposed would be roughly, this is back of the envelope, $109,000. The back of the envelope daily parking would be, and this, I made some assumptions about how many people park weekdays, how many park on weekends, kind of did a blend. It's probably about $150,000. And then the increase of that moving from $12 to $15 on the daily admission is $246,000. So those three fees come up to $500,000. So that's a very, very substantial increase, and it helps in understanding what target you're trying to get to for that margin that you want delivered each time, each year. But that's a number to keep in mind. I didn't include the commercial. It's another $25,000, so give or take. So that's concentrated pricing. And another way of looking at those big three is if you divide them between resident and guest, right? So the seasonal parking is a resident fee increase. The daily parking across the street is a non-resident, or as we like to call them, guest fee increase. And then the daily admission, you could speculate there are some people from Narragansett that pay the $12 each day. Let's assume 90% of the people who come in and pay daily are non-residents or guests. So that if you bracket it that way, and you say, gee, of that $500,000, how is it being divvied between people that are guests and people that come from Narragansett? Well, the residents would pay the $109,000, and then on those other two fee brackets, they would pay almost $400,000, the non-residents. So that's kind of a breakdown of 22% resident, 78% non-resident. Feels like kind of a heavy concentration given that there are fewer guests that show up in a given season than our residents. If you divide the daily admission by 12, you get about 82,000 people that walk in a day. I think Michelle mentioned last year's workshop, probably 250,000 people come to the beach each year. So 1 out of 3 is a guest. And again, it's kind of, this is not audited numbers, but I think they're within 5% or not. So so there's concentration issues with the fees as proposed. And the concentration breaks down into the concentration as it relates to a particular fee. So, there's things called pricing elasticity, and, there's a breaking point sometimes when fees get increased and you don't necessarily get the same number of units sold or the same amount of services delivered. An interesting take on this is if you take the parking fee increase, moving it from the 10 and 15 to 20, if that gets decreased by 10%, 50% of your pricing incremental revenue goes away, because not only those 10% don't pay the incremental, they don't pay the amount that they were paying in years past. So that's just a implication of putting all eggs in one basket. And another thing is concentration around guests versus residents. And I'm a resident, and I believe in the mission statement. I believe that we should have preferential treatment with pricing and services and everything else. But you want to sort of strike a balance there when you do that. So under the presently proposed pricing, a guest, a non-resident, coming on a weekday, parents and one teenager, parking, now it's $46, it would go to $65. That's a 41% pricing increase on that family of guests that came that day. So it feels that, and I think Michelle did reference the fact that contracts are going out now for all of the facilities, and maybe it isn't right at this moment that you increase those fees on the facilities, the resident facilities. But when you look at cabanas and north parking lot, North Pavilion and South Pavilion, we get $509,000 a year from those three entities. If you were to raise prices there 10 or 20%, it would be between $50,000 and $100,000 incremental revenue. And that is where we spend a lot of our money. We spend a lot of our money when Michelle listed through the major capital projects, paving the Cabana parking lot a couple of years ago when we renovated all of the remaining amounts of cabanas. And my wife and I are cabana owners. I'm not speaking for Joyce here. She may not agree with me, but those are expense-intensive facilities. And so, if all these expenses are going up, should they not share in those expense increases? The resident transferable pass, $100, if you took that to $125, you would pick up another $75,000. So to me, it's like, what are we trying to, what's the right increment of pricing increase we want on an annual basis or in a given year? Is $500,000 a little bit rich? Because if you took the 500 and you dropped it into, let's say, 150 to 200 margin, you're up in the $700,000 margin business there. And the work that we saw in the paper, on our best year, kind of a special year, it was 6-something. So if we want to have a margin of $500,000, you can do that with formularizing in the estimate of expense increases and then set the pricing accordingly. So food for thought. If you read the last lines of our mission statement, it says affordability for all. So we have to stay true to that. I believe we have always said that we are not going to set pricing policy to cause restriction on guest attendance. That's not the intent that we've ever set out. If that philosophy changed, then maybe you could really increase dramatically what you're charging the guests that come in. But we've never said that was the reason why we increase prices. And so a fair balance, is 78-22 the right balance for a third of the population that shows up? Feels a little bit rich on the other side. And so the document also says that guests are a significant contributor to our economic health, and they are. So I would suggest some retooling of this, potentially broadening the price points that you increase and maybe not as heavy duty on the guest increases that are laid out here as a first step in starting that. So that's, one other thing, credit card fees. So, and full disclosure is, I actually sat on the board of the company that owns Clover, which is the company that charges us at $20,000. Maybe there's a cheaper servicer out there, we should go get them. But I'd like to know how many dollars that we pull in of revenue, those credit card fees, because getting out of the cash business, where there's all types of handling issues and counting issues and shrinkage issues, that's why parking garages have gone to all credit card and, a number of other services. So that would be an interesting balance point about how you can push more and more dollars at the lowest cost through some type of electronic payment mechanism. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Ms. Cosgrove.
Good evening, and I first want to congratulate the council members for their election success, and I look forward to our new council and what we're able to accomplish as a town over the next couple of years. And also thank you to Tom and the Recreation Advisory. Oh, Gail Scowcroft, Prospect Ave, Narragansett. And thanks to the Recreation Advisory Board with Tom's leadership and to Michelle and her team. The beach has never looked better. We owe that thanks to the folks that work very hard. I normally agree 100% with my friend Dennis Lynch, but I disagree slightly on something that he was just saying. I think it's important to remember that the residents bear a large burden for the cost of operating the beach. And in 2015, the cabana fee went up 40%. Nothing else has ever been raised to that level. So I'm not opposed to raising fees 40% for our guests if it has to happen. But one thing I think that would help us is if we could think of a way to capture some of the money that we're not making. I've heard estimates of 300 to 500 people a day being on the beach without paying, jumping the wall, pushing past the attendants, forcing their way in with their cars, telling people that they're picking up kids, and then they park and they're on the beach all day, saying they're coming for surf camps and they don't leave. So if we had, just say the low number, 300 people a day paying their $15 a day, that's $4,500 a day that we would recoup. And at 92 beach days, that's over $400,000 a year, just on the people that are currently on the beach and not paying. If we could grab that $400K, find a way to increase our security, limit the number of entrances, do whatever we needed to do to prevent some of those freeloaders, as we could call them, then perhaps we wouldn't have to raise fees as much. It really is disturbing to me as a resident to see the Coastal Access, Saving Rhode Island Coastal Access Facebook page tell people how to jump the wall and get on our beach for free, how to push past the kids at the gate. It's just really disturbing. And so I think that may be one way, as I say, to recoup some of the funds that we need. The other thing I wanted to mention this evening was the beach carrying capacity study that Michelle has mentioned and that the Recreation Advisory Board voted to recommend. I think that study can be multi-pronged. It can look at all sorts of things, including the economics of the beach, as well as beach satisfaction. There's many parameters that it can investigate and provide us with some really good data about maximum number of folks on the beach to meet the mission of the beach, giving everyone a good experience, but also provide us some guidance about economics and parking and all the other issues that we so need data in order to inform our decisions. So I hope the council will consider that this year, because if we could get that kicked off in 2023, we'd be ahead of the game next year when we do this. Thank you very much.
Ms. Jarama?
Hi, good evening. Gina Drama, 99 Salter Avenue. So I just have a few comments that I want you to think about. As you know, I'm on the Rec Advisory Board, so this is not new, but I stand here as a parent with kids from age 11 to 18, so I talk to a lot of people, and the recommendations that you have heard are great in theory. A lot of them are great in theory. but they make really broad generalizations. And so you need to think about those kinds of things when moving forward. Clearly, there are fees that are going to have to be raised. And the recommendations that you have in front of you aren't the only ones. But they're the ones that we brainstormed, briefly. And so I just want you to just think about two scenarios. So this year, I went and bought my parking pass and my 3 out of 4 passes for my kids. And we went to the beach once all year. My little guy was in camp, we were busy, my other teenagers had jobs, so we didn't go very often. But yet, my friend was there every day, literally, with her 3 kids every day. And so you can't say that residents are there using the facilities all the time or not there using the facilities and it's guests. It's too general. You can't make those generalizations. But what you can do is look at the numbers, the hard numbers. Look at the spreadsheets. Analyze the data. Make your decisions based on the data. And if you have to make a number, aim for 400, 500,000 as a safe number, then you figure out how to do that. The daily admission fee and the parking for guests has continued to rise while resident rates have not. I know that the North Beach lockers and the cabanas haven't gone up in the last 7 or 8 years. And I also know that if you continue to raise walk-on fees and parking fees, then they're all going to go to the state beach. I know that's what we do. When I have guests from out of town who want to go to the beach, and I say, okay, we can go to the town beach, and it's going to cost about $130 if we all go, or we walk to the state beach. And those are the considerations that are going to matter when you think about how you're going to raise the fee structures. And so, again, the generalizations are fine, but look at the data, please. Look at the data. What percentage of the budget is the revenue coming from? And where can you have the most impact on raising revenue with the least amount of impact on people? Thanks.
Sorry.
Regular beachgoer. Good evening, Tony Weissman, Cliff Drive, Narragansett. Thank you all for your service, and thank you for this terrific presentation. A couple quick comments. I wonder if, when you talked about those who rent, whether it would be helpful to position the increase that you're proposing in the commercial pass along the lines of the rental increases that they are asking for, because it might be consistent and it might make sense. They're increasing the rent based on demand. This is a reasonable way to think about that increase. By and large, I think the recommendations make sense. I think they are well thought out, and I'm supportive. I do think as you look to replenish the enterprise fund, it might be helpful to provide more explanation as to what it is. My understanding is there's a thin understanding of what it is and how it functions, and I think the more people understood that, the greater the support would be for it. And a request. I don't know, as some of you know, I married somebody who grew up here on the beach. I love the beach. And I don't know whether this existed in the past or you've thought about this, but is it possible to keep the restrooms in the South Pavilion open later for those who surf and hang out at the beach, through, say, Thanksgiving? I don't know what the costs are in that, but I think it might be nice. Anyway, generally, thank you very much. Great job.
Anyone else?
Hi, Lisa Gardner, West Bay Drive. Congratulations to everybody. Welcome to the council, or welcome back. I'm a resident of Narragansett, beachgoer, and what I wanted to bring to the point, besides the dollars and cents, was the experience. And the experience at the beach for the past few years has been spectacular. I do go to the beach all year round, much like Eva said, the off-season with my dog, with my family and friends in the summer, and the past few years have been a changed experience of what we went through, say, 3 to 5 years ago, where overcrowding was an issue. And although we have this beautiful town and we have these beautiful beaches throughout Narragansett, the town beach is the town beach. So as a resident, I would like to say that most important to me has been the parking situation. We've had these 2 paved lots, north and south lot, resident only, for, I don't know, was it been 3 years? Probably 3 years. The experience for me as a resident, coming in, knowing there's a spot there, has been absolutely incredible, because I feel that we have sold these spots, 4,500 spots, for less than $1,000. Is there 800 for the 2? I forget the numbers off the top of my head. I used to know all the numbers. They've been sold over so many times, much like Gina said, she bought a pass, maybe didn't use it. But as a resident, you've sold these spots over and over and over. And Councilman Kopik was implying like maybe we should sell these spots, or drove by and there wasn't people there. I think that that is not a good idea. I think we should keep those paved lots for our residents, for this experience, because it's not only my experience, but it's also the people coming to our town to visit, who come to the beach, and then if they pay whatever they pay, and they come on the beach, and there's no room for your chair, and people are on top of you, I mean, that's not selling a product that's valuable. So I think there is plenty of beaches. We are open year-round, 9 months a year, that we are not charging people, we are not asking for anything, but yet we're still paying for the rubbish removal, the other things that the town needs to do. So I just would like to keep everything into perspective, again, bring it back to the residents. I love having guests. I have people, I've grew up here, I have people come visit me every year. I purchase those transferable passes. I bring my friends and my family. I have friends who live out of town, same thing. I'm not trying to close anybody out, and I'm not trying to outprice and outdo. I just want the experience of the Narragansett Pier Beach to remain as it's been for the past few years, because quite honestly, I do not want to go back to the overcrowding issues. I think we've been working together for years. I've been coming to these meetings for probably 10 years. And I think we've slowly been making progress and working as we should, as a community, together, to work together, that we're going to bring this great asset to its best capability. So I just ask you, when you're making your considerations, I understand the dollar amounts, but a coffee is $7. People are paying $7 for a, I mean, money everywhere has gone up. I can't imagine the plumbing. I just renovated my home. The bills are going to be, things are going up. So is it fair? I'll let you guys decide what is fair. I just want you to know that the resident parking lots, the north and south lot, to me, is so important that those stay resident only during the hours that you speak of. The west lot, having that available for people to come is fantastic. And I just thank you for your time, and really consider your residents. That's all I'm asking for today. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public want to speak?
Neil?
Yes, Neil Gartner, 24 West Bay Drive. And like my wife said, it's been a great experience the way the parking has been the last 2 years for the residents. When you were selling spots in the south lot, it was awful. And that's should be considered staying a resident lot. You know, when you go, you don't have to worry about trying to get in there because you sold 60 spots or something. That's just shouldn't happen. Now, the overcrowding, in my opinion, is because of the walk-on bracelets. I hate saying it, but 95% of the time that there's a problem that doesn't get addressed, but there is a problem that I see, the person has a bracelet on. It's a town beach. I understand you have to have by law, the outside people, residents can come in there because, you know, that's the way it's written. So I feel as though if you raise the walk-on pass to $20, you're going to gain the money and lessen the crowd. And if that doesn't happen, I talked to the chief of police maybe 4 years ago. I've been at one of these meetings of talking about overcrowding. there has to be a cutoff at some point for a walk-on pass. If there's 500,000 people standing there in line to buy a pass, they sell 500,000 passes. There's your crowd and your overcrowd problem right there. So if you raise the admission on those passes, I think people are gonna walk away from coming on the beach, and the people that do pay the extra money, it's gonna balance out, and there's your crowd issue right there. Thank you for your time.
Eva, can I just comment? I was trying to cut in on Lisa just to make a comment. So, you know, I know Lisa's been a big beach goer for a long time, and I have to say, I watched when that lot we were selling them in the south, and I agree with you, not so much what Neil said, but I agree with not changing the parking, have it for residents, and then 5 o'clock for non-residents. I think that was a really great compromise, and when we used to sell the spots, it created a lot of tension. So I completely agree with that. I don't agree with her husband on the increased walk-on fees. I just think, you know, but I do think that, I just wanted to say that about the parking. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, since nobody was speaking, I heard this from the staff quite a bit down there, and as you all know, I'm at that beach almost each and every day, all day, and we have had some great seasons. But one of the issues with the kids from 15 to like 17, where kids are getting dropped off, we want them to have the experience so they're not, you know, doing other things. We want them to enjoy it. But when I went to the movie nights and stuff, it just seems almost uncontrollable at times because the kids got dropped off and they were talking back. I mean, I actually was going to, you know, reprimand them myself at times, the principal in me. But, and I don't have any answer, and I know you guys don't either, but I know it was problematic. And I don't know what you do about it, but that seemed to be the age group that just, you know, they were getting dropped off, and they were, you know, people were trying to have that positive experience, and they were, you know, just, and it seemed to be that age where they were old enough to be on their own, but really not being supervised. And I guess it's a parental thing, but I would love to brainstorm an answer for something with those nights, that, especially the movies, like if they're not watching them, then they have to go, or something a little more punitive, but. Anyway, that was all I had to say. I just wanted to remember that group of kids, that it was problematic. And I, too, want to thank the fabulous Park and Rec Board that I try to attend the meetings with, so thank you for your input back there as well.
Any other comments from the public? Any council members have any additional comments or questions?
I have one. The amount of activities, and Susan, I agree with you as far as the youth, that's the problem that I heard as well, is that age bracket was causing a little problem. And they probably are the people that put their feet in the toilet this year for you as well, I would assume. But the amount of events that we're having there during the summer, whether it be the movie night or concerts, I would love you to take a look at that and really find out, are we having too many? Because it seems that in the summer, the pier is so congested anyway because of the amount of guests that come, the visitors are here. To have that balance, whoever said the word balance, I like that a lot. We just need to make sure that we're not over packing people into the pier, and to have the right amount of concerts and movies and activities, I think would be great.
So Jill, I'll just piggyback on that. I'm concerned about that age group, but I certainly, as a young kid myself growing up in Narragansett at 15, there was not a lot to do. And so we were looking for activities and events. So when I say, you know, the issue with the youth, I don't want it to be connected to too much activity, because I think that's what's the draw to Narragansett for the residents and the visitors. So I just want to be clear on that. I like all the concerts, I like all the races, I like the activity for the town.
I think we just need to take a look at it, because I mean, they're really, the events in the summer are really not town people. And as I had mentioned earlier, as far as another aspect, I think the residents of the town should have all these activities for free. And if there is a slight fee that we could ask for non-residents to have, we might want to look at that. The town residents do not need to flip the bill for the visitors or the tourists that come here. They're quite accommodating by allowing them on their beach and to share in our events, but they shouldn't pick up the tab for vacationers.
Okay, everyone. Okay. All Right, so again, this was a work session, so there's no votes being taken to make any changes here. We'll be discussing this further at a later date, and it will be advertised. So thank you, everyone, for coming out and participating. And again, thank you for all the hard work throughout the last beach season. It was very successful, so thank you. So this concludes our work session. So everybody have a